Hi, welcome to Tales of Dread. Did you know that sewage pollutes 40% of all rivers in England and Wales? Did you know that the number of freshwater species has dropped by 83% since 1970? Also, antibiotics are found in dangerously high amounts in hundreds of places and rivers around the world. Make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, and if you're new, make sure to subscribe. Then, get ready to be scared tonight by these creepy and supposedly true river horror stories. Red River Gorge is a beautiful, huge park with lots of wildlife, rock climbing, waterfalls, dense forests, and stunning views. This place feels really far away from the rest of the world and alone. My boyfriend Dee and I decided to go camping at the gorge one fall evening. We found a place to camp that was not too far from the river. The sites were already pretty far apart, but we made sure to get even further away. Our site was right on the edge of a steep drop-off. We got there at dusk and set up camp quickly. By the time we were all set up, the sun had set, and we started making a fire. About 20 minutes into relaxing by the fire, we heard howling that didn't sound too far away. We were both scared when we realized there were wolves nearby, but we tried to stay calm and just keep sitting by the fire. About 15 feet away from where we were sitting, I heard a faint yell about 10 minutes later. I told Dee to be quiet and listen, but we were both too scared to move. A woman was yelling, and we could hear her. At first, it was hard to hear because of the river, but at one point, I couldn't make out any words, but it sounded like a loud, guttural shriek. It was a sound I had never heard anyone else make before. I heard it then. She was crying out, "Help! Please, someone help me! My God! Please, someone help me!" And they kept saying this over and over, howling at the top of their lungs. She could have gotten lost in the dark, turned around, and fallen off the cliff into the water. She might have been hurt by the wolves, the bear, or a snake. We both ran as fast as we could to my car, jumped in quickly, and locked the doors. I tried to call the police, but I couldn't get through. I put the car in reverse and drove as fast as I could down the dirt road to find someone who could help. The screams kept going on the whole way, and I didn't go far before I saw 3 young men standing at the edge of the forest. I slowed down and opened my window a little because I could still hear the woman pleading, and I asked the men if they heard it. Why didn't they hear it? I told them I had heard a woman calling for us in the forest, and 2 of them ran into the dark without asking me any more questions. The other guy just stood next to my car and told me he didn't know what was going on. While the other 2 men were in the forest, I drove further down the road until I found a place to turn around. When I got back, the men were back by the side of the road and no longer screaming. I stopped and asked them where the woman was. One of the men who had run into the woods said, "Don't worry, it's funny. It was just a little kid at a campsite farther down the trail. He had a terrible dream." I just said, "Okay," and got in my car as fast as I could. We left the campground and went straight home. Once we were out of the woods, we called the police station several times, but no one answered. I'm sure it wasn't a kid. I've never before heard such a primal, scared scream. When I thought about it, it made my skin crawl and my heart beat fast. What did those men do that night to get away with it? What was I witnessed to? Hello, swamp dweller. My name is Alex and I was born and raised in Iowa. Now that I'm 36, I love your channel. My story, on the other hand, isn't even really my story. I'd be surprised if this wasn't sent in by someone else in the area. Well-known legend. If you want to know where Matsell Bridge is, it is in rural Lynn County, Iowa, about 15 minutes from where I live by driving on some back gravel roads. It's common and widely known. It has been told for a long time. There is a story that this bridge is haunted. It sounds dumb. I know, but it's just an old story that everyone knows. No matter who tells it, how old they are, or what their social status is, they always tell it the same way with the same details. No joke. I'm not usually into this kind of thing. but a creepy legend about an old metal bridge that crosses the Waps. American River says that if you stop your car on it, something pushes it the rest of the way across, no matter which way you're driving. This is said to be because a school bus is said to have crashed or gone off the bridge into the river many years ago. It has been there for 100 years. It's an old-fashioned metal frame bridge in the style of a lane that only exists in the gravel, boonies of Iowa. I've never believed any of these stories. It's not scary at all until you see it for yourself. On a snowy Iowa winter night, the only thing that broke up the darkness was the snow. There was no wind that night, so we stopped my 2001 Pontiac Sunfire and turned off the engine. The kid, who wasn't an invisible force, slowly pushed us across the bridge. I say go because neither Megan, my girlfriend, nor Floyd, my best friend, left by car. I say ghost because neither Megan, my girlfriend, nor Floyd, my best friend, got out of the car. But when we left miles down the road because we were scared, there were handprints the size of small children all over the back window, bumper, and tailgates of my car. All of them were different sizes, but they were all small enough to be kids' hands pushing my car. I don't know how else to explain this, but I want to thank these good kids for looking out for our safety, which is why they do this. So that other people who cross that bridge don't have the same bad luck they did. This is a strange local myth. But as a 36-year-old man with a family, I can tell you that it's cool and 100% true. I hope you find this interesting enough to share with the swamp as it is. Thanks, Swamp Dweller. Keep telling people what's going on and make sure they're safe. A few years ago, my friends and I went on a 45-mile, 3-night kayaking trip down the Green River in Kentucky, which runs above the Mammoth Cave System, the world's longest known cave system with more than 400 miles of surveyed passageways. In our kayaks and one canoe, we brought everything we needed. We had food, clean water, and everything else. We had planned to set up camp each night on the bank of the river when it got dark and we found a flat spot. The first night wasn't very exciting, but there was nothing quite like seeing a wall of fireflies against our dark, mountainous tree line at night in the middle of nowhere. It was very peaceful. On the second day, after a long day of kayaking and baking in the July heat, we found a stream on the side of the river that led to a large ravine. This was around sunset. We found out that the stream was a cave spring that poured cold blue cave water into a 30 feet wide lagoon that was so deep that the blue water turned black after a few feet. The lagoon had long sandy beaches and was hidden by hills on both sides and a tall cliff that hung over us. It was beautiful and peaceful, but it seemed like time moved very slowly there. We chose to spend the night there in a tent. The soft, fine, white sand was perfect for sleeping on the ground. I was really scared of the place, but I didn't say anything. Everyone was tired, but everyone was having a good time. Before everyone went to bed, we made a small fire and looked at the stars through the leaves for a while. That night, I slept well. I woke up around 5 a.m. because I had to go to the bathroom. I had the tent zipper about halfway open and just stuck my head out. It was still dark outside. I heard a terrible, loud roar or scream far away. I went back to the tent right away and closed the zipper. Then I waited. The scream came from about 10 feet to my left, close to where the fire was going out. It was a high-pitched sound, but it wasn't like an owl screech, though I can't say for sure that it wasn't. It was a terrible cry of pain that got lower as it went on. We were in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky, so whatever it was probably a fox boar or a bird. I listened for an hour while I was awake. When whatever it was finally moved away, I heard nothing else. We were on a soft beach, but I didn't hear a single twig snap or leaf crinkle. It was really strange. I should say at this point that there was a small, dry cave opening up the beach and toward the lagoon. About 3 feet wide. I can't say for sure that it wasn't an ancient creature that lives in caves that came to check out our camp. I fell back asleep and woke up the next day very scared. I asked my friends if they had heard the awful scream, but no one had. We went further down the Green River. At dusk on the third night, we found a large, rocky beach. We pulled our boats up on land and decided that this would have to do because we didn't want to go any further and risk being stuck on the water at night. This rocky beach was where the river split in two, and in the middle was a lonely pile of mud the size of a football field made up of pale rocks, tall grass, and dead wood. There were jumping sand spiders and tiny frogs all over the landmass. Again, out of this world. We set up Camp 8, and we all went to sleep around the same time. I don't know how long it was quiet, maybe 20 or 30 minutes. During that time, I fell asleep, as did most likely everyone else. My dream was suddenly broken by a loud, steady, mechanical wooden beat. I woke up and jumped right up. It really was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It sounded like a huge bulldozer was tearing down a huge building made of steel and wood. Then there was a loud boom, and its sound could be heard all over the river valley. The animal moved, and the birds took off. We all woke up when there was a crash, yelling, and chaos. Outside of our tents, there was nothing but silence, and no one was willing to shine a flashlight into the woods. We all decided in the end that it was just a tree falling, so we all went back to sleep the next day. I kept thinking about it. It wasn't just like the sound of a tree falling. I must emphasize it. It sounded like metal and sounded like it was going somewhere. In the early morning light, it was almost like a roar. We didn't find any strange things or trees that had fallen that could have made such a loud noise. So we packed up and took one last trip down the river before going home. My friends and I still talk about the weird things that happened on that trip. We went on the same kayak trip again a few years later, and nothing strange happened. There were no strange sounds in the woods, and to my disappointment, there were no strange animals. In 2012, when I was 17, a friend and I decided to go running along the river in Sacramento, California. It was a nice day, so we decided to run along the part of the river where there were more trees and bushes and see what was around us. After jogging for about 2 miles along the path, we decided to go into the trees and walk through the heavily forested part. We did this about 20 yards into the heavily forested walk. Things became creepy very fast. When I see something in the tree, I tell my friend that we have to check it out. When we get there, I see that it is a hand-carved, painted wooden chicken that has been nailed to a branch above the trunk. As we look at the tree, we see a tent-like structure to our left made of tarps and other things that look like cloth. At this point, we figured out that someone lives here. My spine tingles, and our instincts tell us we should get out of there as soon as possible. We decided right away to walk back to the way we came, through the trees. We get back on the trail and head back to our car, which is a couple of miles from where we started. As we walked back to the car, my friend felt someone behind us and turned the check around. I'm still excited about the road ahead of us. When my friend turned around, he yelled, so I turned my head to see what was behind us. About 15 feet behind us, there was a person wearing a black hoodie with the faces shouting out and holding a big machete. As I looked down at the arms of the person, I can tell that this guy has been out here for quite some time. I'd say at least 10 inches of that blade were sticking out of the sleeve. But we couldn't see the hand, so the blade could have been a lot longer. We got a rush of adrenaline right away, and we ran as fast as we could to get away. After a few minutes of running, we saw that this person gave up and ran back into the trees, but he followed us for at least 200 to 300 feet. When we got back to our car, we called the police, who are still looking for the man. We talk about this story, but I don't know if the police ever found that person or what happened to him. But we never went hiking on the river in those woods again. There is a river near a quiet part of town. The water has come, and in the winter you can drive on top of it. When my mind is busy and I can't find peace anywhere else, I go there. One night, though, was different. This night, I was by myself at the river after my car broke down. I was lying in the back seat of my car, and my friends and I got into a fight about something. I honestly don't care about it anymore. Months later, I sat and stared at nothing for seconds. All the cars in the parking lot around me had left without making any noise or warning. I stood up and took a look around. From the outside, the smell was almost painful. It was sour and chemical, like when you didn't listen to your high school chemistry teacher and stuck your nose in the beaker. I looked at the water, which used to be clear but was now rusty and dirty. The cars had made it across the river into the forest, and everyone was just standing there looking at me. They didn't move, and they hardly even breathed. They just stood there. At this point, I wasn't too scared to leave my car, but I did try to turn it on and leave. I tried to start it because it kept stopping. I was scared when my car's check engine light came on. I looked at my info chart to see what was wrong because I didn't trust what I could see from the outside. To my surprise, when I used my phone to reach into the back of my car, it was working. I started getting messages from unknown numbers telling me over and over again that I needed to leave. I jumped back when I looked out my window again. I once more looked out my window and jumped back. Everyone was now standing around my car in a circle with their phones in their hands. At this point, I realized I had been crying, so I quickly tried to start my car. It took me 5 minutes to give up and start crying in the back seat. I don't know how long I was back there, but I noticed the smell was gone and heard people talking outside my car. When I woke up, I saw the same people in their cars and the water again. I don't know how to describe what happened. I still go there, but not at night. I still don't know what happened or if it even happened, but if you know me, you know it probably didn't, and I probably went into some kind of psychosis, but it was still scary. I haven't told anyone before because I didn't want them to judge me. I don't know what happened, like I said. I don't know if this has happened to anyone else, and deep down I want to know. I hope that someone who hears this can get an idea of what I went through out there. Thanks for listening to these scary stories about rivers that might be true and will give you nightmares tonight. If you liked these stories, please click that like button. It helps me out a lot. The more likes this episode gets, the more you can promote it in the algorithm, which is very, very helpful. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating because it helps the show grow on those sites. Join us if you are new to the swamp. Click subscribe and notify me to make sure you never miss a new episode. Soon, I'll be back with another scary episode.